and welcome to Adoption in Vegas. In this episode, we're joined by a couple sharing their experience of early permanence, what it really means, how it differs from traditional adoption, and the emotional realities behind the process. From uncertainty and attachment to the impact on a child's early days, this is an honest and insightful conversation about building a family in a unique way.
Can you explain in your own words what early permanence means and how it differs from a more traditional adoption route?
So I think, I mean, our best understanding of the differences is that standard adoption, a child would often end up going through the foster care system and maybe jump around home to home a little bit before they then end up um, being caught as kind of needing to be adopted and then being placed with an adoption family. Whereas early permanence removes that uncertainty from day one and means that they're placed with adoption family like really early on or as early as possible to give them early permanent stability, security of home, and structure from day one.
Yeah, and I think and I know it's a professional perspective here, but I think I would want that for every child, no matter what their age is. So perhaps even if they've been in a foster home, one home, two homes, if we were able to offer them the opportunity to come to adoptive families, families who want to adopt them earlier, like you say, it removes that uncertainty for them, doesn't it? So I think wherever we are, but you're right, traditionally at the moment it tends to be those younger children who kind of come home more quickly. But that uncertainty hasn't really been taken out of the system, has it? Instead of the child holding the uncertainty, it's you guys that hold it
Mm.
because those decisions haven't yet been made and the child may return to birth family. Was that scary for you, knowing that that was an option, that little one might not stay with you? Was that something that was difficult?
I think it ebbed and flowed, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I think, if we're honest, I'll speak for myself anyway. I think I went um, into the process feeling quite like this potentially is temporary, and we need to guard ourselves around that. But also knowing, like, you get told all this stuff, or you mustn't grow too attached because they may not stay with you. And I was just like, I just don't
Mm.
think that's going to be possible, to be
I
honest.
know.
So I think
How do you
if
not become attached?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so if baby does get kind of replaced with birth parents or with someone else, if they decide we aren't the family or whatever, then we just have to like take that cost, and we just figured that whatever the outcome, we would have to trust that that is the best thing for child, even if that meant we went through a grieving process of like attaching and then having to say goodbye. But that being said, I would then say probably when like Maya actually came home,
Mm.
I think I probably held that mindset for a bit longer than you. And I would say probably you, I mean, you say, but probably from day one, I think you were like, she's our child forever.
Okay.
Whereas I probably held a little bit more into, oh, there's all this stuff to happen yet. And therefore, I mean, my attachment was quite strong from day one, but I think it probably grew as we got closer and closer to
Mm.
certainty of her staying. Whereas I think you probably did that a bit differently, didn't you?
Yeah, I think having like being the mum and being the one who stayed home with the other children, our biological children, I think I had that um like that recollection of what it was like being at home with a newborn baby, and that I just remembered what it was like and it felt the same, which was really, really special. And I think the just from her history and from like her family background, I maybe was a bit reckless and I thought surely the percentage is less. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
Well, no, it's
um
how you felt, isn't it? That's kind of what you felt knowing the information that you
yeah,
Yeah.
knew.
and so I think I went in just was like if she went back to birth family, then it would be a big shock.
Mm.
So I yeah, I'm a bit of an all or nothing kind of gal.
Yeah, but that is the reality, isn't it? Like I remember
Yeah.
sitting and having conversations and talking about. So we were matched with Maya while she was still
In
in
utero.
utero, not born yet, for the less medical in the group, and and so we like had all the information about like other siblings who've been in the care system and like mum's history and all this kind of stuff, and I remember us having a conversation and actually having friends who have been through the process who had actually a very, very similar kind of background story,
And others who hadn't.
yeah, and who hadn't, yeah. And we did kind of sit and measure up in our decision of like whether this was the right match for us. One of the there were lots of contributing factors, but one of them was, as best we know, we do feel like this is absolute like certainty to head into adoption.
Yeah.
And so we
As
felt,
ironclad as it can be, then
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Because we did have to consider our other children as well in it, and they were definitely in our conversation as well about whether to adopt or not before we even considered foster to adopt or straight adoption.
Yeah. And I think just reflected on the fact that you both had perhaps slightly different feelings or approaches when she first came home. I can completely understand the need to kind of keep yourself perhaps a little guarded, worrying about possibly the worst case scenario. And I got a sense, Caroline, that perhaps I was wrong where I jumped in with both feet, but also isn't that kind of what our children need? Like one of the reasons we do early permanence is to give them the experiences that they need from the earliest days, isn't it? So I think that mix of both approaches is so important. If we keep ourselves too separate, it's not what we've signed up for, is it? We're not what we've signed up to do. And I say that as someone who's never done it, so I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being patronising or because I'm not. It's just like, I think it's a very special thing that you've both done. You mentioned the process there and speaking to people who'd had like similar things going on and different things going on, but what was the assessment and preparation process like for becoming dual approved? Was it, yeah, what was it like?
I mean, you did most of the paperwork, didn't you?
Divide and conquer.
I
You can
did
do the
most
paperwork. Yeah, nice.
PA of the family.
yeah. But I think in terms of like, I mean, in terms of dual approved versus single approved, well, first of all, we've never done single approval, so we don't actually know what the difference would be. We said in terms of whenever people would mention anything, I don't really know that it would feel that much more encompassing or time consuming or emotionally draining than being single approved, to be honest. There's maybe
It's
a couple
more
of
at the
more
other end, like the matching, isn't it? Where you go and meet them and
yeah, I mean, there might have been maybe a couple of more training things. I can't remember, to be honest. But in terms of the general experience, like it is quite taxing and draining. Like it does require a lot of you.
and friends as well, like the references and things that they have to give and the calls and stuff. Like it is quite comprehensive, as it should be. You've got a child going to another family. You want to make sure what they're saying is that legit and the references are correct.
Yeah, and it never. I don't think it ever. Some people we've spoke to have said like, "Oh, it feels really intrusive." I don't think we felt like it was intrusive, but I mean, we live quite open book kind of lifestyle anyway.
And we've also got quite a boring history. Like we haven't got lots of things in the closet.
Yeah, no skeletons to come popping out. So
some of the questions I was like, oh no.
No. But I think it definitely. So we weren't bothered really about talking about all of that stuff or writing it out or anything. But I think it does just require a lot of like actual time, and emotional capacity. And so we actually did. We paused it, didn't we, for a little bit?
Yeah.
Because we live really busy lives. Like work's chaotic. We already had 2 young children at home, so I can't remember. I think after stage 1, we took like a 6-month break, just because we felt like we needed to like process other things and give it our time properly and all that kind of stuff.
So.
You was just training and work was busy. So, and that's good that you can do that. And so I think, we'd be lying if we said it's not taxing, probably would be the word that I would use. But also it feels right as well. Like we weren't like frustrated by the process. People walk you through it. Like it's really well guided and supported. But you can't really go into the adoption process thinking, oh, life will change if we get matched with a baby. Like life change when you start the process, because it takes time and you have to go through all the stuff.
Yeah, and I think our jobs actually lent quite well to like the training and all of the conversations and like visits and things. If you work a 9 to 5, it's really tricky to get it in with the social workers.
Yes,
And I know
yeah.
work's meant to give you time off, but from people who have sent us questions and been like, they've actually been and I know, yeah, their process has been hindered because they can't get the sessions in because of
Yeah.
work and the commitments and stuff. Because it's all very well saying from HR to say, oh yeah, you can have the time off, but the reality is you still have to get your job done, don't you? So
Yeah,
thankfully I work shifts and you sort your own hours, so it was okay.
yeah. And I think that is a real valid thing to kind of let people know who are perhaps listening to this thinking about going on. They are entitled to time. They
Yeah.
are entitled to have the support of their employers in terms of giving them time. Um, but it still can be difficult to
Mm.
organise that time. And as you say, you still need to do your job, don't you? So it is taxing. It does add to kind of what's in your life already. The whole approval process. Um, but I think what you said there, Mike, was really helpful. Is your life doesn't change when little one comes home. It's kind of when you start the process, isn't it? That's when the adjustments first start happening. Um, I think we've kind of touched on this already. But what was it like when she first came home? In terms of your thoughts, your feelings. Yeah, you're welcoming a new child into your family. You've already got your children at home. Was it as you thought? Was it as you'd hoped?
It was I remember driving her home from hospital and coming home, and the kids were at school. You were, I think you were at work and hadn't come home yet. And I just came home to this empty house with this little baby, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's happened! It's real." Yeah, and we got discharged with her slightly early because we got approved to give her some of the medication that she needed at home. So
Well, and that's
we're on quite a
I was going to say that's probably
regimented
helpful
schedule,
to
wasn't
say
it?
that we were actually matched with her, and then she was in hospital. So you just said about coming home, but
Yeah,
she was in hospital for
20,
2 weeks
yeah.
before, and
She came out day
so we were
22.
caring for her in hospital for 2 weeks. So the first time we ever met her was like she was like 2-3 days
3
old,
days
went
old.
into hospital, and that was strange. Like you've got all the emotions really, and I think you there's I mean we come from this with with the experience that we've got our own biological children, so we've done the whole like being like giving birth to a child and then meeting them for the first time. And I think the interesting thing about meeting Maya in hospital was that you do immediately get like, well, to just all like the cooey baby, like cuddle, emotional feeling stuff. But then you also get like this rush of like, but I actually don't know you. Whereas when you have your own biological child, that I don't think you really feel that about them. Whereas even though she was only 2 days old, there was a bit like, well, I don't know what you like. I don't know how to hold you. So there was a bit of a like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing in this moment. In a way that I think is different when you have your own birth child.
And she was about half the size of our
And
children
yeah, and she was
too.
tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We had monsters.
yes, that was different too because she felt super fragile. And then I also think one thing that I always say to people is, for me anyway, in terms of like that first interaction, I think that I remember that like the first time I ever held our firstborn biological child, I was overcome with like this crazy emotion that I couldn't really explain of like, I've literally just met you, but I would throw myself under a bus to protect you. Like, and it so shocked me how quickly the love came. And I think I would be lying if I said it was exactly the same for Maya. But what I think balances it out is that I feel like I had this fierce, like feeling of protection over her, like in a way of just like you've already had a really really rough entrance to this world, and so I'm going to do everything that I can to protect you from that in the future. And I would say early days, like that protection instinct was like way stronger, and then over time it kind of like has like leveled out to be like a bit more. I mean, she just feels like any one of our children now, and so I would say that's what I think is quite an interesting dynamic in terms of feelings and emotions.
I find that really interesting because I am a mum and only a mum through adoption, so I don't have anything to compare it to at all. And I recognise what you're saying there, that fierce protection, that desire to protect, but also kind of not know, being aware that you don't know and you're not quite sure who this little person is or what they like, or even something I felt whether they were going to like me. You know, that was a big fear I had. You know, what if I can't soothe you or settle you? You know, and I think it is important to talk about the fact that, you know, the feeling of being willing to throw yourself under a bus might not come immediately, and that's okay. There are other emotions, and things grow as you get to know one another, because you know these children haven't been biologically made by us, and that's okay. Sorry, I digress. It was just I found it so
But then,
interesting.
just to give people, just so some of our family have been through IVF as well
Mm.
as us going through adoption and having biological children, and all those emotions, I think, of this is really hard, or oh my goodness, would you please stop crying, or oh my goodness, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. They come no matter how you've had that child.
Yeah.
Like I know that people who I know have gone through IVF, have, when they've found it really hard, they felt really guilty because they are finding it difficult, and they should be grateful because they have this child. And same with adoption, like, oh, yeah, like I've wanted you forever and we've been through so much, so I can't feel this emotion. But no, like having a child, full stop, is tricky. And um, you're allowed to feel all those emotions. Like, um, when you said you don't know, you might not know how to soothe them. I felt that for my biological children. I've been like, Mike, your turn. Calm down.
Tag
And
team.
the same with Maya as well. Like sometimes I was like, her scream, I was like, I can't take it anymore. It's so loud. Could you take care? And vice versa. And the same with our biological children. So I think there's this weight when you've fought maybe a bit harder actually to have that child, that you can't feel these emotions of it's difficult, or um I don't know if I can do this, because you feel that with every child at
With
every
every
stage, I'm sure.
yeah.
We haven't ours is 6 and below, so we're still in the young years, but it's really hard and it's new and you're navigating something different, and I just think that people need to be able to feel that as well, and
100%.
be like, it's okay, it will go, it will pass, and you need to be able to say, I need help, and can you have a go this time, because it's not working with me. And like when we were in hospital, and Maya was poorly, and the nurses would come and help, and they'd be like, try this, or this has been working, or this generally works. And then at other times, sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, and it's trial and error the whole way through. But yeah,
Yeah.
give
What?
yourself a bit of grace.
Yeah. The other thing I was just thinking about, in terms of like how it felt when we first met her. One thing that I think is made, like, I don't know, potentially different for us, because we were matched with her when she wasn't born yet. We did have like this kind of ramp up of like all being well. The reality is we actually didn't know whether baby would be born and be alive, or whatever. But all being well, a child is coming, and we had like an expected due date and all that kind of stuff. Of course, some people will go through the early permanence process of like, you're approved and you're kind of sitting around waiting, and then you get a phone call and you're like, can you come and pick up a baby tomorrow? And like that, I don't even know what the whiplash of emotions of that would feel like, because there is just like a sudden, like, oh my gosh, a baby tomorrow. Whereas, I mean, we had that a little bit because we were waiting.
was
And
2
she
weeks
was a bit
early.
earlier than we expected. We'd just been on holiday. We got back from holiday. Social worker came to meet us, and she was like, "She's been born. Do you want to go and meet her?" And we're like, "Oh my god!"
And you
Oh,
have to call work, and they're like, "The baby's arrived."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh right, okay."
Yeah, but we did know. So because he we shouldn't have done this, but on holiday we bought some baby clothes. So like so we were like we had a bit of preparing that we could do, but I think yeah, I don't know how helpful this would be, but I think just for anyone who doesn't have that ramp up to be aware. I think the sudden rush of, oh my gosh, my life is literally about to change, and I didn't know when that was going to happen, and now it's now. Is
and I
probably a
think
lot.
and that's one of the hard things I always find to get my head around with early permanence is that it can vary dramatically from family to family as to how it kind of came about, how old little one was, how much warning you had, how much information you had, how certain it is or uncertain that they may be rehabilitated back to birth family. That there's so much that's unknown, and timing is just kind of another one of those elements, isn't it? But I think I'd really like to know, like, how did you manage all of the uncertainty? You mentioned there, all being well, baby's coming, but we don't know for sure. How do you manage all of that uncertainty? What do you do to support yourselves when so much is unknown?
There were times when it was quite tricky, weren't there? Like I think one of the well, I think it's a beauty and a challenge of the process is that it is still relatively new and relatively unknown, which does mean that there's a bit of flexibility in how things work because people are like even the professionals a lot of the time are like still kind of working it out as they're going, which means that things can change and be done a bit differently. And I think probably different social workers would deal with it differently. Um, the challenge with that is that it can be quite difficult to really feel like you know whether you're coming or going and like whether you need to fight for more information until you get given it or you know I remember we were once like told that I think we got I can't remember whether we were on holiday or no we weren't on holiday but we got a phone call from the social worker just to update us that like birth mum had been in an altercation and ended up being rushed into hospital in an ambulance and we didn't really know much more but we'll let you know and then like that was like conversation over and we're like oh my gosh like what on earth is going on like is this baby okay is birth mum okay
But she did get a scan out of it, so that was good.
yeah and in the end it was obviously fine but it's there is so much that is out of your control which I mean to be honest
It's probably quite
the
good.
reality of that when you're having your birth child anyway like you know anything could happen and you just don't know but I think and this is where the wisdom comes from the social workers of like don't try not to get too attached because you that especially in our situation where she wasn't even born yet it's like we just don't even know but then I remember even you know when she'd been born we sat in hospital talking to social workers and like social workers were changing within a couple of days and like certain people knew bits of information and other people didn't know bits of information and I think I remember at one point which is just how I'm wired aside from getting incredibly frustrated with the system and thinking one day I'm going to change my career and fix this whole thing it's just a I do remember just having like a bit of a realization moment that was like our responsibility is to love this child and care for this child like all of the rest of the mess that I don't really understand isn't really our responsibility like and like it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride and we just get our head down and love this baby and that will work itself out and of course there are moments when you feel like you have to like put your foot down and you know there'll be a few things where I think we would be like either to do with like hospital care or social workers where we're like no actually we feel quite strongly this needs sorting out or you need to give us clarity on this or but ultimately you just kind of have to go well it is the whole situation's a bit terrible really and the system is broken and under resourced and so you just have to get on with it really
It's similar to that classic wisdom where you kind of remind yourself of the bits that you have control over.
yeah
What can I do? And almost let some of the other stuff go and let it happen without you, because we can waste a lot of emotional resources and a lot of time worrying about stuff that we actually cannot control. So it sounds like it was helpful actually just to refocus on where your responsibilities lay and what you could do. And it was all about your care of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything, did you speak to friends and family? Did they really understand kind of all the intricacies of what was going on, and was it helpful to speak with them about some of the uncertainties you faced, or was it actually
It
quite
was definitely
difficult?
helpful to speak to friends who had been
Yeah.
through it before. So um, so Mike's boss, actually, him and his wife had recently, about a year, 2 years before,
Yeah.
2 years before
Yeah.
maybe, had done early permanence too. And both the children's background was quite similar. So their hospital experience was quite similar. So we knew how we could try to make Maya's better. And lots of our social workers were similar as well. So that was really helpful to, or they'd had crossover, really helpful to have that to chat through. Then our friends and family were really supportive. Got lots of teachers and doctors in the family, so that was helpful to be able to talk through background stuff and milestones and things like that. Um, no, well, some had maybe considered, like, it had potentially been on their radar to adopt, but actually not, chosen not to in the end. But they were always really supported by going on the courses, and they did all that they could, which was like really beautiful actually. And then having the conversations afterwards, and
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I think our family were probably a bit more nervous around it because they were, either it's not something they'd ever considered, or I think the uncertainties for them were bigger than they were for us, because it's always been something that we'd wanted to do since before we were married. We'd spoken about it, and we have a faith as well, and that really was was part of our adoption, and some of them don't. So that was a worry that they carried that we didn't.
Mm.
But I think mostly it was chatting to people who were going through the same situation or had been through, and gleaning whatever wisdom we could from them and support, and yeah, just having that chat because they've been through it.
Yeah. I remember like sometimes getting to the point where, especially talking to like friends and family rather than people who've done it before, and them asking questions about like really understandably like the process and how it works and what happens next and when will you know, and you do
Don't
you
know.
do kind yeah you do kind of get to the point where you're, but I'm a bit bored of like trying to explain this to you in a
For the
way that you'll
hundredth
understand.
time.
Yeah, in a way that you'll understand, but that ultimately means the answer is we don't really know, because it is also flexible. And so I think we ended up probably coming up with some fairly loose language that was like, oh well, it'll need to go to the court, and then it could be this time, and it might be 6 months, just like a really, really vague answer, because it's like we could spend hours trying to explain the intricacies of it,
And it will change.
and it will change. Yeah,
And
and
it will change. We'll have the conversation again and still not know.
yeah, but I think what you touched on is really important to know, to like I think, and actually I think we went into this process thinking like well, probably didn't even think anything other than everyone we speak to will just think adoption is a brilliant thing to do, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I think we were a bit surprised at um, even some of the like very. So there were some family members who would be very loving and pastoral in their care and concern about the impact it might have on our biological children. And even that was like, oh, well, we were like, well, we feel like you've been a bit short-sighted there, but we understand where you're coming from. Then there was one particular family member who basically flat out said they think we're being really unwise and making a really stupid decision, and like, wasn't there hundreds and thousands of other people in the world who wanted to adopt a child, and why would we be adopting when we could have our own biological children? And it was really painful to go through that process and have that conversation with them, because they just didn't understand where we were coming from or what they were doing. I mean, the interesting thing is that actually now they basically, in the only way that they know how, kind of apologize by saying, isn't marriage the most wonderful thing and isn't the best thing that you've ever done as a family? And so it's like people are wired differently, aren't they? And so there will be people who won't understand.
I think it was their way of saying they were scared. It was, which is a scary thing to do. Like, you never know.
I think that's very generous and very kind and compassionate of you to be able to
this
see
is a
that.
few years on, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure
There were some harsher words shared at the time.
I am sure you're right, and to be able to come to that understanding, no matter how long it's taken, I think is a really good thing. And I do find this area quite interesting because, we focus a lot on support networks when people are going through the process to make sure that people are adequately supported. But what I've kind of come to realize over the last few years is that actually sometimes the best support isn't the people that you thought it would be.
Yeah.
It might not necessarily be your immediate family or your closest friends. For some periods, it might be people who have that shared experience, be it adoption in general, or be it the early permanence route, or be it similar kind of understanding and experience of medical situations. It tends, or not, sorry, don't want to say tends, it can be those shared experiences that are more helpful in times where you are facing challenge. Yeah. And so, what kind of support did you receive from Adoption Focus? Kind of throughout the whole process really, but it might be more interesting to focus on kind of the support that you needed or received kind of very close to Maya coming home or when she was home. Were we of any use? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, massively. I mean, we've been so impressed, and have already said to lots of people, like, if you're going to consider fostering or adoption, like, use Adoption Focus because they've been brilliant. I think we found the training really helpful. I know our friends and family found the training really helpful. Being matched with like other people who've been like further on in the process who we could chat to. And I think
seamless.
Yeah, and I wonder if just trying to imagine what the differences would be. I think what's really good about doing it through an agency and what I think Adoption Focus did really well is that especially as you say, like when you get really close to being matched or in those early stages, it's like there's almost like a third party because the what's the word, the local authority are obviously still involved because they do the pairing and the matching, and so you get a social worker from the local authority, but then you get like an adoption focused social worker and support group, which are almost separate.
Like an advocate.
Like an advocate, like they can help you, they support you. They're in the whole process, which wouldn't be there if you'd just gone straight to a local authority and done like a route through them. Then there's a whole support network that actually isn't there. So we got all the support from the local authority. Not that there was, I mean, social work was brilliant, but there wasn't really a lot of other wraparound support. And then you get all the stuff from Adoption Focus, which was great in terms of like just someone to phone, someone to email, well, a whole team of people who you could ask various questions to, and then the links that you could get. I mean, we've found it brilliant, haven't we?
Yeah, we did. And like the support in hospital, as well was really good. Like when we all went together, and it was really special. Like our social worker couldn't come at the time, so the family finder came, and it was just really special, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you guys would tell us that you're grossly under-resourced, which I'm sure is the case. And so if there's any rich people listening, please donate to But I think my sense would be that you are better resourced than a local authority. And so, you wouldn't guarantee this for anyone, but I remember we were really juggling, like wanting to care for Maya while she's in hospital and not wanting her to be by herself, but also juggling like two young boys at home and I was trying to work a little bit at the same time. And our family finder, who we'd ended up chatting to quite a lot, she was really brilliant. She just said, Alex, yeah, she said, you need to go and have a family day. We had this thing planned with church that we were debating whether we do it or not. And she was like, you need to go and do that as a family. I will go to the hospital and I will hold Maya all day so that you know
I think it was a real chore
caring
for her.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, I know Alex quite well. I'm sure she was gritting her
I'm
teeth
sure
when
it
she
was awful for
volunteered
her.
that.
But it meant so much to us, didn't it? Because it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, oh, like this is suddenly a win-win. Like we're not having to choose between, like, essentially they were our children. You know, Maya was a child that we were caring for, and it felt like we'd been neglecting her to go to this thing with our boys. But if one of us didn't, then it felt like we were neglecting them. And so it was like, it was such a gift. And I just don't think anyone, like, I just don't believe the local authority are ever resourced enough to be able to do something like that. Well, and I think the honesty is she probably did that out of a kind of the heart and wasn't paid to do it anyway. But yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I will share that with Alex. Make sure she knows how appreciated she is. Um, this is a kind of not a strange thing to ask, but once again we butt up against, you only have your own experience of how your early permanence journey's been. We can only really imagine how it might have looked differently. But was there any moment where you thought early permanence has made such a massive difference to her life? Like like this route has been the best route for her. Like like I say, it's a hard thing to think about because obviously it's the route that you've followed. It's the way your family has been formed. But has there
Yeah.
been a standout moment or more where you thought, yes, wow, this is
Yeah, we
good.
were talking about this just before, weren't we? And I think there's two, both are medical ones actually. And the first one is, so Maya was withdrawing when we met her, and it met like there's now, I think there's medical evidence. Anyway, there is definitely practical evidence that if you're cuddling a baby who's withdrawing, it happens quicker. And the doctor who was there when we first met her, who had also done early permanence, which is so strange. They were a locum and it was all very weird. They were like, give her a cuddle and she'll get out earlier. And so we just picked her up straight away.
And they actually said, based on what we know about her, and also based on what happened with her full sibling, who will have had lots of similar exposures, and actually they worried that Maya would have been exposed even higher. They said you should expect her to be in hospital for like 6 to 8 weeks.
She came out at day 9. Well, she came home at day 9. We still had to give her medication at home. So we had to be trained on how to give her medication, and we had a team coming out every day or checking in every day.
But only for like a week or so.
Yeah, and so just until she'd finished withdrawing, and then we had to like fill in a scale and stuff. But she was on that medication for a significant amount less than she would have had to be in hospital because she had that physical contact. And obviously, I think it's 2-to-1 nursing, maybe a bit more higher ratios. She was in like the equivalent of HDU for babies, and they don't have the time to give them the cuddles. That's not what, like, they're there to give the medical medical care, and that's like they just don't have the capacity to do it. I don't know how they have the capacity to listen to them screaming when they are withdrawing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at children
No,
screaming because they're withdrawing, but yeah, the
honestly.
capacity for that, gosh.
No, yeah.
No, well, and even
But
that though, like, and because it's double edged, because it's like it's the care and the like cuddles and the comfort and stuff that baby gets that helps them first of all attach, but also get better. And then yes, I mean, I was horrified at the thought of like not being there and her like crying through the night because nurses didn't have time to give her like the time and attention that she needed. But there was a moment when I think it was one of the first nights that we basically came back onto the ward, and they said she had a really rough night. She was screaming loads, and so we booked a medication. And it was like that was the only
that was
solution.
heartbreaking.
That was the only solution that they had, and because they were like basically, and they didn't say this, but the honest reality is, if there was someone there holding her, she might not have needed as much medication, or it could have been delayed. Whereas there wasn't, and so the only resource the hospital had was to give her more morphine.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then that whole delay, And then we were like, right, we're going to be there as much. We did a rota. We were there as much as we can.
Yeah.
And they categorically said, didn't they? Like, she has been discharged significantly sooner and quicker.
We're basically just waiting for us to be trained on the medication.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
That's what delayed it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, though, as well, because we often can overlook how traumatic it can be for children to be in that hospital environment when they're very young. So, not only have you got the pain and discomfort that they're experiencing, perhaps not being held enough, but actually, we know what the lighting is like there. You've spoken about the noise, we've got the beeping of machines, we've got people. It's very, it's not a comfortable, homely family environment, is it? And so to have been able to reduce that time from possibly 8 weeks to 9 days, that's massive as well, isn't it? Just the amount of time that she spent not within a family and not at home. Yeah.
Then the other one is that it's not quite as traumatic as that one. So she's got a squint, and we did notice it quite early on, that when she's tired, her eyes go a bit squinty, like a bit squiffy, a bit squinty, not straight. So it meant that we got to take her to the doctor sooner, because like we've got that one-on-one time with her. She's not in a foster family where maybe there's a couple of children who are young and maybe more demanding,
or being moved around where people don't notice it. And
and when we did take her to the doctors or to hospital, they did say, oh yeah, and you've caught it quite early, so that means that we know when it started and whether it's in both eyes or just one eye. And like there's one of the mums in the school queue, she is on the I team, and I don't know what the role is, but you know what I mean. And so she was like, oh, this is what you'll do, this is what to expect, these are the waiting times to expect. And just that was really helpful. Or we'll be in the park and she'll have a quick look, and obviously they can't diagnose anything, but just to put your mind at ease and to know that it's not something that could have been preventable. It's just your eyes. And so that was the other one that we were able to.
Yeah, being in a family, not being moved around, as well as all the attachment stuff that we know about it, means that your attuned attention to her could identify that there was a difficulty and get the right help. Yeah.
And I mean, and the honest reality as well, and this is probably slightly different because I know that not all early permanence is like within days.
Yeah.
But of course, the almost the challenge that we have of answering this question, but it proves the importance of it, is that, well, she is no different to any other of our biological children, because the experience is exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's not, because of, like, we know that like attachment disorders can start in the womb and all that kind of stuff, but it's like we almost don't know any different, because we know that she's had the best possible start of like stability, security, love, siblings who love her from day one, and she knows,
slightly too much.
Slightly too much. Is that such a thing? Have you kind of encountered many or any challenges or misconceptions that people might have around early permanence? Is it something that's been well understood, or have people held those misconceptions or presented challenges to you?
I think I would say there's two examples, and one would literally be like the system itself. Like there are people within the system that don't understand early permanence, and so we will be fighting. Like there's this whole thing around I can't remember all the details now, but there's something around like when you can formally apply to the court for the adoption to be finalized after you've been matched. And basically our hands were tied, because we had one social worker saying no, it's this way, and another social worker saying no, it's the other way. And so we're like, well, we're going to have to default to the lowest common denominator.
Like in different councils.
Yeah, and so you're just like, well, you're at the mercy of whoever's going to shout the loudest, because no one really knows, because it's still being developed.
Because it comes under adoption rather than fostering.
Yeah.
Or it was the 10-week rule or something, where you have to.
So yeah, my understanding is 10 weeks after a child has come home would be when you would apply for the adoption order.
That's it.
But so we didn't do it from when she came home. We did it from when it had been granted.
Yeah.
fostering had been.
Yeah, that was it. So because
So it was actually like
lots of
6
people
months.
lots of people said you'd be able to do it straight away because she's already been home for way more than 10 weeks, and so
That
the
was
whole
my
point.
understanding,
Yeah,
but I
and
think
that's
I'm
the debate.
sensing here something that
That's not the
you're
case in
bringing,
Birmingham.
which
Yeah.
is actually people are a bit unsure. They'll have an understanding, but then when they're questioned on it or someone has a different understanding, it starts to get a bit woolly.
Yeah.
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 So you've got that, and then the other thing, I remember getting really cross at like a social media post about. I'm almost
Was it
certain
in
it was
America?
from someone in America about early permanence, basically saying like how terrible it is for people to go into the process willing for a child to not go back to birth parents and their mindset was because birth parents is always the right solution and we should always seek reconciliation, we should always allow people to have a chance of change. And it was like, it's really frustrating, and these are the difficult things. It's like, well, yes, of course, with one hat on, you can say, yes, of course, reconciliation is always best. People should have a chance to change, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but at what point do you get to the point where you say, but the cost and the burden on a child to bounce around social care while people ultimately make a decision, excuse me, that we know is likely to happen anyway, i.e.
It's happened
like
before.
it's happened 4 times before, they've tried and tried and tried, and so the best case scenario is we go with stability of a family, and actually knowing full well, as we all have been told and taught, that a court may deem that child is going to go back to birth parents, and we just have to trust that that's the right thing. And I think there still is a bit, I think, of a bit of misconception around some of that it's like some people would
easy option.
understand that, yeah, that you're doing this because you want a newborn baby or you want a young child, at the detriment of birth parents. Whereas it's actually, no, we're doing this because we honestly believe it is the best thing for the baby. And we actually had we were asked about adopting a child who was 18 months old, I think, or something, and we really thought about it quite a lot, because we're like, oh, this is the first thing we've been asked, and ultimately we came back to, well, first of all, we were told, well, yes, this child's 18 months, but the adoption process will probably take another year. So we're like, gosh, this child's still going to be like bouncing around forever, and then we just felt so convinced and convicted, actually, that there were a lot of people who very understandably go into the adoption process and emotionally cannot possibly bear the emotional cost of being placed with a baby and then being taken away. That it means, our understanding is that there isn't enough people wanting to do early permanence than there is for the demand, whereas we felt quite strongly we could do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why, so we actually said, no, someone else can adopt that child, because there are lots of people willing to do that, whereas there are less people willing to take the risk that we are, and so that's what we wanted to do. But there is a misconception about why you would do it.
Yeah, when you kind of mentioned that social media post, it for me the thing that struck me was the idea of will. I don't think I've met, and I meet a lot of adopters. I don't think that I've met any adopters who are willing for a birth family to not be able to meet the needs of their child.
Yeah.
That is not something that many, if any of us, are hoping for and praying for. But the reality is, unfortunately, that not all birth parents can meet the needs of their child in the timescales that that child needs.
Yeah.
And so it's not a will
Yeah.
thing.
I think it's like incredible that Maya's parents, they actually signed the paperwork and said, I can't look after her.
Well, they wanted to.
Yeah.
It's complicated with the system that they couldn't, but they genuinely said,
I can't
we know
cope.
we can't, and they
I-
even said, we're grateful, aren't we? Can you pass on our thanks for this
Yeah.
family who were
And
willing to take Maya in?
that is huge.
Yeah.
To be able, like, they don't have the capacity to look after her. They do have the capacity to say, I'm not in the position to do this. And that is like heartbreaking. And I think that is going to be a huge story that we tell Maya when we, we haven't crossed that bridge yet 'cause she's too little, but like that she was so like they still so loved her, but they just couldn't look after her. And I think that is like actually really wise of them as well. Like it's making me really emotional to be able to have that thought.
And in many ways, I mean, I'm such a strong advocate of early permanence that I would argue that I don't think the legal system goes far enough to vouch for it. Like I still think it's still a bit too encumbersome, complicated, takes too long. So even in this exact example, you had a birth parents who said we cannot care for this child and the best thing for her is to be adopted, but the legal system basically wouldn't allow her to do that because she couldn't afford her own lawyer, so they had to be dragged through the whole process,
which is so hard. Like they've been like, we can't do this, please don't. Like the emotional tax on them
and
would
so
probably not have helped their mental state and their capacity and their where they were at.
And so while I understand like that, well, I don't know the full details, but like, you know, whatever it is, the legal thing that means you can't grant an adoption until a baby's been born for so long and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I actually think all of that needs looking at with the care of the child being the like permanence for the child being the priority, like, and how do you get that where you know it's needed?
I noticed while you were talking there the strength of your compassion for birth family. And that's obviously something we kind of speak about throughout training, and I know it's explored during assessment as well.
It's not her parents' fault that she is having to be adopted. Like if I'd have been through what they've been through, and I don't know the full story because obviously we only get told what we're told. If I'd been through what they've been through, I would not be here. Like, and we get we get to look after her, and she's amazing, and like they don't get that, and it's such a privilege. And she's so cute and hilarious, and she's slotted right in, and you've just got no idea what they've already been through. And
I think that's one of the really interesting things. Again, you know, talking about support network, you never really, and obviously you don't share very much with support network about like birth parents and stuff, which is then hard for them because if they don't have the full picture, then they can't make an informed judgment. But you never quite know whether you'll be met with like quite a judgmental attitude towards a birth parent who has had the child taken away versus what we would definitely take, which is just oozes of compassion of just like, gosh, the fact that you're even still alive and fighting for your life is testament to you enough. Like you had such a rough ride that we're not surprised that you're in this situation, you know. And so we just get it, you know. And I think that is actually something that is just worth noting, that you almost have to navigate that, like people's feelings and thoughts and emotions around birth parents, and therefore the narrative, because we're aware, you know, as Maya gets older, people in our support network will, I'm sure, no doubt make comment or reference to birth parents and their inability to care for her and all that kind of stuff. And so we're all like fighting on behalf already, like for future Maya, but also for her birth parents now, of like, no, we're going to protect their integrity actually, because they're doing the best that they can, and like trying to get people to understand that really is also part of the job. Which, and I guess probably that is maybe something that's slightly unique to foster to adopt, because you're way more involved in interactions and communication with birth parents than you would be through adoption. I think that's right in saying, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And it's touching something for me hearing you both speak, because I do share many of the same feelings, and I speak to adopters who do share many of the same feelings about their child's birth parents, but I do think you're right that it's slightly more unique with it being early permanence because of that involvement at the beginning, or perhaps hearing more about like the pregnancy, for example, or kind of the things that have happened during that. I guess you get a bit more kind of up to date in the minute information than I would have had.
Well, because even like the whole like what they're called, like contact sessions that you do during the fostering process, and the reality is we actually never had a successful one. But the whole like the toing and froing the information, the narrative that you hear, and all that kind of stuff, like that was all in many ways. So that some of that has been really helpful in terms of feeding the narrative and story that we can then tell Maya, because it's through that we learn, which isn't written down anywhere because it's not part of a record, but it's like that's where we learn the truth that birth parents had said we simply cannot turn up to contact, because last time we had a child taken away from us, it was so painful that we cannot bear going through the process knowing that we won't get to keep her, and so we have to protect ourselves and not engage. And so it's like that narrative is so different to the other narrative, which would have been untrue, which was they just don't care and actually they'd rather get high than turn up and meet their child. Not true at all, but that's what you would assume, you know. And so all of that stuff has been really helpful. Difficult to journey through, but helpful.
And you're holding that information now yourselves, but also, as you said before, for future Maya, aren't you? So that when the time is right and when those conversations be, and you can give her as truthful picture as you can about the difficulties her birth parents experienced and their reasons for not being able to take care of her.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be really hard to answer this question, and hopefully our conversations today have kind of offered lots to prospective early permanence carers, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If there's one piece of advice you would give to prospective adopters who are considering the early permanence route, what would it be?
Take the risk and go early permanence. Is that advice, or is that just rallying?
Encouragement, rallying call, yeah.
Well, I think I would say I don't think you could probably quite as strong as take the risk, because you don't know everyone's individual.
Yeah, I don't know their story. Yeah.
But what I would say is like do the dual approval.
Yeah.
Because actually it
Then it gives you the
doesn't
option.
really demand very much more of you, and then you've got the option to decide.
Yeah.
Because actually I think what we learn is that you don't really know like when the matching process is the right match until you've actually had the experience of looking at a couple, saying no for whatever reason that doesn't feel right, or until you just get that gut feeling of like, no, this is the right matching, and you can't retrospectively do that. So if you only go through the adoption process, you can't suddenly go, oh no, let's do early permanence. Whereas if you do foster to adopt, you can still adopt, or you can just do both.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, well, we didn't know any different, but we don't feel like it took much more of us, maybe one extra training call or Zoom call, but it means you can choose.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope this conversation has given you a deeper understanding of early permanence and the experiences of those who choose this path. If you're considering early permanence or adoption and want to learn more, be sure to explore the support and resources available on our website. We'll see you next time.